I'm the Assistant Dean of Undergraduate Studies at the David Eccles School of Business, and I want to welcome everybody joining us. We have some updates, quite a bit of activity happened this week, and so we've got some updates, and then I've got Kathy Hajeb joining me to answer any questions that you might have on housing, and then Sheena McFarland is joining as well to kind of help coordinate the questions and answers. As I go through some content, feel free to ask any questions. The best way to do that is to go into the Q&A tab and then just type in your question. And then as soon as I get through the content, I'll start going back and forth on the questions to answer hopefully every question that you have. So I've got this slide showing. The slides will be uploaded to the Eccles site at eccles.link/fall2020, and the video of this webinar will be there as well. So if you want to reference any of the slides, you can go back and check those out on the website. So first of all, many of you may have seen the announcement that came from the university, and so there is a new site that we are able to go to at the university. And so I want to make sure I can get to, sorry, my slides so that you can see the next slide. There we go. And so right here is the link. So if you get into this when it's on the website, you can link straight to this, or you can just type it into your browser, returntocampus.utah.edu. This includes all information for students, faculty, and staff. So there's a ton of information in there, and they're going to keep it updated. I've pulled out some of the information just for students that I'll go through right now, and then we can answer specific questions that you have. But this site is now up and running, and anything that the university has to communicate on the returning to campus will also be included on this site. So the first thing that is very important to note is that there is a modified calendar for school. So we are continuing to start school on August 24th, and we will have in-person classroom instruction. And the in-person part of it will finish by Thanksgiving, which this year Thanksgiving is on November 26th. Fall break has been canceled. So previously on calendars that you've seen that have fall break as October 4th through 11th, that is no longer the case. We will not have a fall break. That's to allow us to finish in-person classes by November 26th. And then the classes will actually extend online until December 3rd. Now, we announced last semester that there is a U.S. vice presidential debate that will be hosted. Originally, it was hosted during the fall break week because there's a lot of details associated with hosting that. We do not know if that's going to be happening in person anymore or if that's going to move to online. So in the event that it is an in-person debate that takes place, then classes for that period of time will move online. We don't want to have a lot of students on campus when we have all the people for the vice presidential debate. So more to come on that. So just know that fall break is no longer, will be in class October 4th through 11th, and there is a chance that your in-person class will move to online for that week. Now, following Thanksgiving, the instruction will shift online from November 30th to December 3rd. So we've just got that week that we're finishing up classes. And then final exams will be held December 7th through 11th. Now, the reason for this, you might be asking, why did we take away fall break? Why aren't we coming back after Thanksgiving? And the reason being is that when people go on fall break or go home for Thanksgiving, they're coming and going from a lot of different places. And so the exposure to the virus increases. And so the University of Health experts and a lot of other universities are doing this approach to minimize people coming back and forth because we feel like it will help us control the virus on campus. So That's our schedule now, still starting the same time, classes ending by Thanksgiving, and finals the 7th through the 11th. That means all finals will be done online, and there will be some classes online. So to go into a little bit more detail about what to expect, there will be some changes that are needed to assign classrooms to students and for faculty. We are doing all of that work right now. What's really happening is we want to preserve the in-person college experience for our first-year students. We also want to make sure that seniors can complete their degrees on time. So we're looking at everything with those guiding principles. And so what's happening is we've had to evaluate every single classroom across campus to make sure that we can keep students 6 feet away from each other, and the students will be asked to wear masks when they're indoors. And so that helps control the virus and makes for a safer environment. What that means, though, is normal classrooms that would hold 80 are now holding about 30. So what's going to most likely happen, and this information is being evaluated right now, if you're in a class that's smaller than 30 people, nothing's going to feel that different. You'll probably just be in a different classroom that makes it a little bit bigger. If you're in a bigger class, then what's probably going to happen is you will be assigned a day of the week that you're coming to class, and then you will do some of the classes remotely. The remote part of those classes will be live, so you will be able to ask questions and interact with your professor. And so when your schedule, like let's say your schedule says that you have a class at 10 a.m. on Monday and Wednesday, you may be assigned to the group that attends in person on Monday and through Zoom or Canvas on Wednesday, but you will be attending during that time period. And then that allows you to have in-class experience and then have a different group of students come the other day. And so it will be kind of more hybrid. And there will be online resources and digital technology that will be maximized for every course. The faculty will provide your syllabus and the regular class communications through Canvas. And they will be recording and streaming lectures through Zoom or some other digital technology. So there will be a lot more information that comes out on this class by class. And we are going through all of this in the next week or two. And by the end of June, you will know if there's any adjustments that need to be made to your schedule. The other thing that you can expect, we are going to be reaching out to students to see if there are students within the Eccles School of Business who prefer to take online classes. Maybe you've got some health concerns, or there's a reason that you would just want to opt into online for these classes. And so there will be a survey, so we'll be able to identify the portion of students that just want their classes to be online. There will also be online only classes available in schedule. So when you look at the schedule, you'll already be able to see these are the classes that are online only classes, and everything about those classes will be delivered online. The in-person classes are the one that are going to this hybrid model where you'll be in class part of the time, online part of the time. Those are the ones that we're also going to see if there's anybody who wants one of those classes but wants to not appear in classroom. So more information coming on those. Physical distancing, so there will be reduced capacity in classrooms, in labs, if any of you are TAs, and we will be restricting the traffic patterns in hallways and in stairwells so that we can keep the 6-foot distance that's been recommended. The wearing of face coverings in common indoor areas, which include classrooms, is expected, and that's even if you are 6 feet apart. When you're outside, if you are maintaining a 6-foot distance, then the face masks aren't going to be required, but you may still want to wear those. So when we're outside, it's less strict than if you're inside. For those who do not have a face covering, the university will have some to provide for students. And hand sanitizer and wipes will be provided in every classroom, so you will be able to wipe down your space. And as you would expect, the guidelines require some changes to assigned classrooms or schedules. And so those are the ones that we will be able to communicate by the end of June, any changes to the schedule. We're trying to minimize changes to the schedule, but until we get everything kind of laid out, we won't know which ones we're going to require changes. And so all of that work, as I mentioned, is going to be done in the next couple of weeks. Housing, there was an announcement on housing and more clarity on housing. So students will be housed in the room type that they reserved, with the exception of triples or lofts. These had more students assigned to those, and so those will have 2 students in each of those. Residents will be housed with roommates as they were originally selected in their Housing U application. There is a change to move-in day, so we're going to adjust it so it occurs over multiple days so we can space it out and reduce crowds. So move-in days will be August 18th, 19th, and 20th, and you'll get a lot more information on your move-in assignment, the date that you're assigned, by mid-June. Because of these changes, there is a contract cancellation extension, so you have until June 15th to cancel without any penalties in the event that now that you have this information, if you want to make different arrangements. So you can evaluate your individual health and safety plan and make decisions based on that. As I mentioned, Kathy's here to answer any questions that you have around housing. And then finally, this is the chart that we had last week as well, but we are committed to frequent, transparent communication. We know that this is an unsettling time, and so we want to make sure that you have access to the people that you need to be able to get all the questions answered so that you have a level of comfort coming back to school. So the Eccles.link/fall 2020 site is where we're constantly updating the frequently asked questions. There is an opportunity there to ask any questions via chat. We will post all the video of the past webinars and the slides from the past webinars, so that information is available. I will continue these weekly webinars on Thursdays from 1 to 2 between June and July. And if we still need them in August, we'll continue to have them in August. And then we will continue to use email updates as announcements are made so that you'll have lots of opportunities to answer questions. So I'm going to get out of the slides, stop sharing the slides now so that we can better see the Q&A that's happening. So as I mentioned before, if you have a question, go down to the Q&A function here and just type in your questions, and I'll start answering those, and Kathy and I will cover any questions that you have. So the first question is that, will lectures also be recorded as a matter of policy to accommodate for difficulties that might arise due to illness, etc.? And so the answer to this one is yes, we will be recording lectures. The lectures are anticipated that there will be a portion of students who won't be in class because we're either rotating, or somebody is sick, or somebody is in quarantine because they've been exposed by somebody who's sick. And so we will be utilizing the technology for that. Now, each class, you will be able to see what the policy is on attendance, on participation. And so, you know, your professors will also be able to tell you specifically whether that's something that they're going to be recording as they do it. There is synchronous versus asynchronous classes. So let me explain the difference between those two. Synchronous means that you are participating digitally during the same time that the class is happening live. Asynchronous means that it's taped and you can access it according to your schedule. So if you want to do class at 11 o'clock at night, or read or watch the videos and do the assignments, that's a little bit more on your schedule. Where classes are live and on video, those are synchronous. So you are expected to be in class on the same time period that you would be in class in person. If you're doing it digitally, you'll be expected to do that at that time. So if you want asynchronous, there might be some asynchronous content and some assignments done asynchronously in classes. That's up to the professor. But if you want a class that you can do completely asynchronously, then you should sign up for an online class, not these hybrid classes. And then student wanted to confirm that finals will be online. So it's going to be, you will not be doing finals on campus. Now, some professors might ask you to submit something, so it's not necessarily that there will be a test in Canvas in every class. That's up to the professor, but there will not be any meeting times on campus during finals week to do in-person finals. So we will not be in class that week. Do I see this format extending through spring? It's really going to be as long as the state of Utah is in yellow, which I mentioned last week. For those of you who didn't attend last week, the state of Utah has color coding that goes from red to orange to yellow to green. And so yellow is the what we're planning for, and that's where we can have up to 49 people gathering together, and this distancing is required. Currently, the University of Utah and Salt Lake City is still in orange. So orange means that we're not meeting together. We have a strong indication that we will be yellow by the time school opens up. So those are the plans. All of the state of Utah, except for like 3 different locations, are all already on yellow. And so in spring, if we're in green, it's going to be different. If we're still in yellow during spring, then what we're doing in the fall will extend to spring. But that really depends on what's happening with the pandemic and the COVID-19 and the cases and the capacity at hospitals. And so that's something that we're going to need to continue to watch. And just that there could be a instance where we go from yellow to orange, or maybe even back to red. And so we'll be communicating what happens if that, in the event that is going to happen. So we do need to be very flexible, but these guidelines that we're preparing for and that I'm talking you through are assuming that it is yellow. As a new transfer student, how can I get a spot for on-campus learning? I cannot succeed in online classes and I'm not interested in that approach. I'd rather wait a semester than be forced online. So my suggestion to you is that you look for classes that are smaller than, that are smaller than 30-ish people. It kind of depends on the capacity of a room, but if for very, very small classes, they'll be able to meet together with social distancing without a problem. For a little bit larger classes, you'll be doing the alternating day. So you'll be in class one day, and then you'll be watching what's happening in class one day. And then for large classes or for certain classes that are scheduled to be online, those might have a portion of the class that's just participating online. So you'll want to, once we get the schedule set, you'll want to make sure that you look at the kind of class that you're signing up for, and you can always check the size of the class, and then that will kind of help you gauge what's going to happen with your class. Okay, do we know what in-person student services will look like in the fall? Academic advising, business career services, etc. So we are anticipating that if we are in person in the fall, that we will have student services available to you in person as well. We're going to be going through the same kind of safety protocol. So it'll be 6-foot distancing. You'll need to wear a mask. You'll need to sanitize things. We will also continue to provide the virtual appointments for students who don't feel comfortable with that, who would prefer to just have an online appointment with their career advisor or their academic advisor. Also for tutoring, we currently have online tutoring, the in-person tutoring, anything that we can do that's in a room where we can do the social distancing and the masks, then that's our preference, but not everything's going to be able to happen that way. So we'll communicate to you early what the situation is there. Okay, so question, will all hybrid classes have the opportunity to opt in for the online live opportunity? So if there is a class that doesn't have to be a hybrid class, where there is a classroom that fits all of the people in the class, then you should not expect that those will give you the opportunity to opt in online. So that's where we will know by the end of the month of June which classes are going to have some online only options, or will be the class where you can come in, but you also can have a portion of the class online. And so we'll identify which classes will fit into that. A lot of the business school classes we don't have very many 10 or 15 person classes. Most of our classes are over 30. And so, so I'm anticipating that opportunity will exist for many classes, but I wouldn't expect that for every single class. For the hybrid class that are synchronous, could a student sign up for those classes and only attend virtually at the designated time? Trying to understand if a student can choose to take all online classes in both synchronous and asynchronous, or if the hybrid format is required to be in class on those designated days. So I am anticipating that where there is a larger hybrid class, that you will have the opportunity to opt into just doing that one online synchronously. And so just as I mentioned in the answer before, that is something that it will depend on the class. But what we decided to do is let students, there's students out there who might have concerns because maybe they have asthma, or maybe they live with somebody who has an immune system that they have concerns about. So they want to participate in a live format, but they want to do it online. So we're asking you to fill out a survey. The survey hasn't gone out yet because we want to understand the classes first and which classes are going to need to have that happen. So we wanted to give people the opportunity to opt into online before we assign people to the online piece. And so it all depends on the size of the classes. So the earlier that you've signed up for a class, the better, because if you sign up for a class that already has the online or the in-person part figured out, that might be a class where they only have space in the online part of it. So next Thursday, I'll be able to give you a little bit more detail because we've got this meeting on Monday where we're laying out all of the classes, but I'm just telling you a little bit about the process that we're going through to analyze all the classes to be able to be really transparent about what we think they're going to look like. Okay. Let's see, you mentioned there will be changes even if we go to green in spring. If green in spring, what kind of changes do you see for the spring semester going forward? So green, what they're saying within the state of Utah is that green is actually a new normal. It's not going back to the way that it was. And so I don't know, because the new normal part we haven't sat down and kind of walked through. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I would anticipate that in a new normal, we still have to be careful. We probably still need to wear masks. We may not need to space 6 feet apart. We may be able to do things a little bit differently as far as having groups gather together. Maybe the group sizes can be a little bit bigger, but we might not get to the point where, we have the same kind of clubs and things, you know, it's hard for me to anticipate what that's going to look like, but I think it's going to be a place where we'll be sitting for quite a while. And so when they say new normal, that's like the step before there's a vaccine and we don't have to worry about social distancing anymore. And so I think going from yellow to green will have a similar, like orange to yellow allows more people to get together, and there's a path forward as far as, you know, walking one way, you know, having X's on the floor where you're standing in lines to wait to go to the restrooms, like those types of things. There will be adjustments to those, but what those adjustments are, I don't know yet. So that's where, you know, spring next year, number of years. I mean, there's been a lot of speculation of how long it's going to take to get to a vaccine. And when you do have a vaccine, how many people will take the vaccine? You know, there's been a lot of questions about when we get to herd immunity. And so all of that are things that, you know, we've got great people at the University of Utah in the health system and in administration that are connected very closely with the state government and the city governments. And so they want us to be able to go back to normal so people can have their jobs, so that you can go to the places that you're used to going, even before there's a vaccine. So that's what we'll be watching for. And as soon as we know, we will communicate that to you. Okay, do you have any information on what rush will look like for the fall? I actually don't. I'm sorry. I haven't heard anything yet. That's something that I think that that they're waiting for and probably planning right now. Now that Monday, some announcements were made for expectations, then I'm sure that the committees that are looking at that are looking at the same thing: social distancing, 6 feet apart, wearing masks, no large groups. How are we going to do what we want to do given those guidelines? And so I would continue to look at the Return to Campus website, and I'll see if I can get more information on that, but there hasn't been anything published that I've seen. So we'll continue to look for that, but I would imagine that they're working on that. And same with clubs and other on-campus activities. The clubs, the social part, you know, nobody wants to eliminate those. People want to continue to be able to get together and get to know people in clubs. So there will be adjustments made so that that can happen within the guidelines, but each club is looking at what is that going to be. So I know Blink is an organization that I work pretty closely with. That's the student leaders here at the Eccles School. And they even this summer have all kinds of virtual get-togethers so people can connect virtually. I think that in the fall, there are in-person opportunities. You just have to manage the guidelines that have been communicated. So I would imagine that the clubs are working on what that's going to look like for them.
Hey, Andrea, this is Kathy. I don't know if I can jump in a second. So I come from the Lassonde Entrepreneur Institute, and we've been running summer programming all summer. And I'll tell you, we've found some really cool ways to enhance our clubs and our student organizations with that hybrid approach. You know, the one-on-one coaching meetings, some of the conversations we're having with experts. It's given students a real flexibility to be able to talk to someone about their business ideas in times and in an easier way than in-person meetings. So I'm kind of excited for how this crazy time has given us some opportunities to make these clubs and organizations even better than they've been.
Yeah, excellent point, Kathy. You know, it's interesting because I've heard people talking about some of the things that we've done through this pandemic that will start to be kind of regular practices. So just personally, my husband needed to go to the doctor the other day, and it was all done on the computer, and, you know, within 15 minutes of signing up, and the prescription was where it needed to be. I'm not excited about going back and waiting in the waiting room for a long period of time. So I think that, you know, those types of things, telehealth is one of the things that the healthcare industry is saying, you know, this has really changed us. We've built up this capability. And so all the things that have become more convenient, we may continue to use going forward. The things, you know, personal contact is not something that people want to spend a long time having to forego. And so just figuring out kind of the new normal, and that's why I think green is called the new normal, because it's looking for ways to go forward where we're meeting the greatest number of needs that we can possibly meet, but it might continue to include some of the behaviors that we're starting to kind of get used to. And so all I ask is, if you are concerned about something, then please ask us. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out, because that's the way that we, going forward, can make sure that we're meeting the needs of the most people that we can. Do I have any information on the study abroad requirement? I still need to do that since it was canceled this summer. So don't worry, you are not going to be penalized for your inability to do something if through the pandemic, that's the reason you were not able to do it. You will definitely, you know, we will either provide an opportunity for you to do it or give you another way to meet that requirement. So you don't need to worry about that. I can tell you with Eccles Global, we don't have any programming planned for fall with Eccles Global, but we will start communicating when you're coming back to school August 1st, the things that we're planning for spring and summer. We will also be just watching what's happening in spring and summer, because, you know, in the event that there are certain countries that are still closed in the spring, obviously we won't go to those countries. We might make some adjustments so that we go to places that are open. And so we are planning for spring and summer to have something in Eccles Global, and then hopefully the conditions of the countries will allow us to travel. For the fall, I think I mentioned this on the last webinar, the Business Scholars Program, we are planning the leadership retreats at Zion National Park to do that in the fall, and then the out-of-town trips in the spring. And so we are still, you know, watching those things, making plans around social distancing, kind of allowing to do that. In the global cohort, we're hoping to go to Vancouver, but we'll make a decision whether the Vancouver trip needs to switch to Moab or whether we can go to Vancouver. So those are things that we're planning. You should see the spreadsheets. The team's phenomenal. They've got a spreadsheet for yellow, Grello, they're calling it, kind of a step in between yellow and green, and then green, and what you could do for each one of those. And very, very creative thinking to still be able to have the experiential cohort building types of activities for everybody. So more to come on that, but we are planning for Eccles Global for spring and summer. Okay, let's see. I was told to wait to take the Business Scholars Seminar class until spring 2021. Is that not correct? So Business Scholars, we have the freshmen, the incoming freshman group, or sometimes you know, students are sophomores for that class. And then we have a transfer class that's just one semester long. So what we decided to do is we're not having the transfer class in the fall because the travel, we didn't think it would be as compelling if we couldn't do an out-of-town trip. And so we're planning to have a larger section or multiple sections in the spring. So if you were going to do the transfer scholar program, which is the one semester long, that's the one that's spring 2021. If you're an incoming freshman or a sophomore and you're doing the full year program, either the global cohort or the general cohort, that will be starting in fall. Okay.
Andrea, do you see the chat question that came from Amy?
Sorry, no, I've been doing the Q&A. So let me move over to chat. And then let's see. Okay. Student, is that the one on the Student Life Center? Okay, here's a couple.
Amy's asking, will the Student Rec Center be open for students in August?
Okay. So they're following university guidelines and the directions. They're working to reopen that and the Student Life Center. I think the rec center's housed in the Student Life Center when the low risk yellow category is determined, and we'll have available staffing, safety equipment, procedures in place to operate the Student Life Center. So it's currently closed because we're still in orange, and then they're working on practices that they can do for yellow. I haven't been told exactly what that's going to look like. I would imagine it has to do with, you know, wiping down machines, spaces between people, that type of thing. And so,
Amy, one thing, I don't know if you're coming from out of state, I can tell you the rest of Utah that's in the yellow category, our gyms, our spin studios, our yoga studios are open. They're just very, very creatively meeting the new guidelines.
so. Great. Well, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. I'm going to check the chat and just make sure we don't have any other questions in chat. So, Kathy, anything I didn't cover that that you have perspective on?
You know, I'll just tell everybody, it's an interesting time for all of us, but the number one priority, as I've worked on many of these committees, I come from the Lassonde Entrepreneur Institute in our Lassonde Studios housing, as well as our programming. Campus is really focused on making this an incredible experience for students to be on campus. And so with that charge, I've seen innovation, I've seen creativity on how to really deliver orientations, how to welcome students onto campus, how to make the classroom exciting. You know, as I've talked to my fellow faculty members, some of these, you know, hybrid ways to do classes, they're going to be some pretty cool opportunities. So I just would share with you my optimism. I think it's going to be a new way to come to college in the fall, but I think kind of a cool way to come to college in the fall.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kathy. Also, if you have any suggestions on topics, like Kathy's been phenomenal to come because we know there's a lot of housing questions, but if there's other questions, other people. Now, you know, we obviously represent the Eccles School of Business, and so some of the questions that you have for campus life, sororities, fraternities, that type of things, you know, I'll see what I can get. And I always look at the return to campus, and then I'm happy to reach out to some other folks across campus. But if there's some other things that you think of during the week that you want to make sure that we address on the webinar next Thursday, feel free to go into the chat on the website. You can let me know now, or you can go into the chat on the website at eccles.link/fall2020 and then ask those questions there. And then that helps us put everything together for the topics on the webinars. So I think with that, I'm just double checking that there weren't any additional questions. So have a fabulous week. Thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to talking to you again next Thursday. Thanks.